usually facing the other way.
Facing the other way, that's what it's okay.
Oh, good Lord, look what just happened.
Oh, man.
You broke it.
You broke it.
Really?
It's not a good sign.
You broke the thing.
Anyway. Hello. All right, this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber,
Here.
Mr. Halpin,
Present.
Mr. Sion,
Here.
Mr. Nye,
Here.
Mr. Lawrence.
Here.
Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is both audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. Let me take a moment and outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is going to be presented by the staff, and then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant, and after that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium. After being recognized, speak into the microphone, state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. So, what I would, now will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. So all testimony is going to be given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. Let's see, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes.
Any changes? So unless there's objection to the, from the board, we will approve those by unanimous consent. Number 2 is going to be approval of the minutes from the July 6th meeting. We had one correction on page 3, which I gave. I was not here. Any other changes? How about a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes as written.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Haber,
Abstain.
Mr. Halpin,
Yay.
Mr. Sion,
Aye.
Mr. Nye,
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, then item 3 on our agenda is consideration of case 17-2023 BZA, a variance request for a 6-foot tall wooden privacy fence in a side yard. And I would ask for staff to make their report, please.
All right. Tonight's case, case 17-2023, is for 6793 Sunray Avenue. The applicant is Thomas Robert Armstrong. Property is Zone C, and the variance request for this evening is for a previously installed 6-foot high wooden fence in the side yard area of the property where it's not allowed to be located. So the reason why this fence was installed, neighbors each neighbor has a dog, and they play, fight, bark, whatever the case may be, interact, and this fence was put up to stop that from happening because of an injury to one of the dogs. The home was built in 1942, and Mr. Armstrong purchased the house, excuse me, June 2018. There is a zoning certificate on file for a 6-foot tall privacy fence in the rear yard, which was issued in 2011. Staff did receive a complaint May 19th of this year. On May 22nd, we did inspect. On May 25th, a letter was written and sent notifying the properties of the violation. The property here is outlined in red. This is aerial. And this is a topography map of the property. It's again, property is outlined in red. This is part of the application packet that was received by staff from the applicant. You can see the blue line indicates the existing fence, and the red line indicates where the 6-foot tall privacy fence is now located in the side yard of the property. These are photos of the house and of the property. So findings for this case, the staff is of the opinion that the variance could be substantial, with a fence which was already constructed on the property is 6 foot high, privacy fence located in the side yard where a 4 foot high, 75% open fence is permitted. The essential character of the neighborhood may be altered and adjoining properties may suffer a substantial detriment as a result of variance. The homes on Sunray Avenue are very closely built to one another. There's approximately 20 feet between the two structures. And the side yard setback is 5 feet in this area. This leaves a little room between the properties. Also, 6799 Sunray has a deck that wraps around onto the side yard where the fence is installed, making the space very tight between the two properties. The variance would not adversely affect delivery of governmental services. Staff believes that the property owner's predicament could have been feasibly obviated through some other method other than a variance. Instead of installing a 6 foot tall privacy fence in its current location, staff believes that it could have possibly been possible to push the gates that went across the driveway back to the existing 6 foot tall fence. And I can go back and show photos of what we're talking about. And staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement may not be observed and substantial justice may not be done by granting the variance. The applicant installed a 6 foot high privacy fence without zoning approval in a location not permitted by the zoning resolution. The applicant could have received approval and installed a 6 foot high privacy fence in the appropriate location in order to keep the dogs separated as stated in their letter. These are the standards to be considered for a variance. And we'll be happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Could you show that photo again with the gate, please?
So in this photo, you can see the existing fence, 6 foot tall fence, and then the new 6 foot tall fence in the side yard. Staff believes that the chain link fence going across the driveway potentially could have been relocated to the back portion of the house to prevent any interaction between the animals without installing a 6 foot fence in the side yard.
So you're saying from the rear corner of the house there on the right, then over to the left?
Correct.
You could have put in some kind of a barrier?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
And so where the old wood appears to be in the 6 foot fence, that is in a permitted area then?
Correct. That was permitted in 2011.
Anything else? Mr. Armstrong,
Yes, sir.
would you like to come to the podium and state your name, your address, and anything that you would like to present regarding your case?
Well, my wife has prepared something. I would also like to address a few things. Is there an order that should be done in?
Up to you.
Okay. I would just like to start by saying that the notion that these animals are playing together is not correct. They have been attacked. We, as far as I know, have submitted a photo. I don't know. But blood on the face of both my dogs is not playing. And this has happened more than once, which is why immediate action was taken. I don't believe that moving a chain link fence to where he has stated would have solved the problem. The ground there is not level, so I assume we would have to fix that. In addition to that, it's more about the constant, in addition to the fighting, which is why it was built, the dogs are constantly barking and just creating a menace to our backyard. It's not a livable space for us in the condition before we did this. So yeah, we saw it as an immediate problem. It is also an immediate problem because of what's been going on legally with our neighbors. The police are there every 3 days. Their son has jumped over our back fence before we installed that to flee the police, and they were there just twice this week. So between the environment that they allow there and our dogs being, they're not playing. It was an immediate concern. I guess that's really all I have to say. We don't have much time for them to come in with scars and stuff on their face. And again, just to reiterate, the fence being not located from where the old fence was put up would it would keep the dogs running back and forth and still continuing to bark at our dogs, even if the fence was put up against the garage, my wife, and they also just kind of bark at everything. There isn't much law and order.
Okay. Do you want your,
Yeah, she has something prepared.
okay.
I'm not a good public speaker, so sorry in advance. We recognize the option of moving the gate to the rear corner of the house because of the direction of the opening and the full range of motion of the gate. We weren't confident that we would be able to utilize our garage if the gate was moved. We also understand the assessment that the neighborhood or the character in the neighborhood may be altered and adjoining properties may suffer a detriment. Excuse me. While the homes are 20 feet apart, as you suggested, the variance has actually been very helpful and very well received by the neighbors at 6799. They've mentioned multiple times to us how helpful it has been, nice it looks, and how great it has been to have privacy. They actually didn't build that side deck until after this fence was constructed because they felt they could finally use their side yard. Again, sorry for my shaky voice. They've been grilling out there very regularly ever since we built the fence. And after years of living next to each other, we've both been finally able to take full advantage of our yards, which has been great. We have been in regular contact with the homeowner and resident at 6799, Tony Griffin. We had asked him to come this evening to speak on our behalf and share how the fence had positively impacted their lives. However, as my husband mentioned, they've had some issues this week, and his wife is actually in the hospital in critical condition, and so he wasn't able to be here tonight. However, he did call the zoning commission today and spoke with Paul, hoping he could write a letter in lieu of attending tonight to speak in favor of the fence or to send an email. Paul had informed him that only the sworn in-person testimony would be allowed. And so, since both parties directly impacted are in favor of the variance, myself, my husband, 6799, I would hope that you would vote in favor of it or consider postponing the hearing until a date when Tony, the homeowner at the property affected, was able to voice his support. Thanks. Questions?
Questions?
What was there before? What was the fence like before?
Just a chain link fence. God, sorry, that's very loud. Just a chain link fence, as you can see. So we actually constructed, I helped build the fence. I'm very proud of it because it's the first thing I've ever built. We actually jutted it out a slight bit, so it actually makes the neighbor's yard bigger, technically, than it was before. But yeah, just the chain link fence.
So is that, the chain link fence is still there? Is that what I see there in the?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And is it about a foot apart or something?
Probably, yeah, roughly a foot and a half.
And just bushes between them?
Yes. And you can see the new construction on their patio. They just built that like a week after the fence, and they've been utilizing it very regularly. You can see smokers there. They're out there all the time now. And actually, it's like improved our relationship slightly, like very complimentary about the fence, and has appreciated having it there for the privacy. Because as you can see, our houses are fairly close together.
That's all I got.
So your neighbor across the fence is Tony Griffin, that's 6799?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Tony Griffin. He spoke with Paul, not you, zoning commission Paul today, because he really did want to come speak in support and has really appreciated it. And he was hoping to write an email, but or sign a letter that we could bring. But our understanding is that's not allowed. I'd be happy to get him to sign something and bring it back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else? Thank you.
Thanks.
At this time, we'll take testimony from anyone who is in favor of granting this variance. If you would please come up to the podium, state your name, your address, your affiliation.
I'm Cody Jackson. I live next door on the other side at 6789 Sunray Street. We're for the fence staying. Before it went up, it wasn't like they've said the dogs are very aggressive. I mean, I would be 2 yards over working in my garden in the backyard, and they would be like growling and barking at me. Whenever the dogs would kind of see each other on the other sides of the fence, they would, it sounded kind of vicious, the way that they would growl and bark at each other. Even the 2 dogs that are back there, they fight all the time. But I think since the fence has gone up, it's been a lot more peaceful. I can be in my backyard and not have to yell at a dog to stop barking at me from 2 yards away. It seems to have improved the relationships of the other neighbors, which I know there's been some conflict there in the past. So I think, but from our point of view, from what we can speak to, it's been a lot more peaceful on the street, and we don't mind the fence. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I was in the neighborhood, and I, for some reason, didn't think to look, which I normally do. Do any of the other houses, as far as you can recall, have a fence like this, a tall fence between the houses like that?
Not that I can recall. I mean, I just don't know. I just know my fence, and then the other side, and the ones next to me.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak in support? Ma'am, please identify yourself, address, affiliation.
I'm Mary Jackson. I'm Curry's husband. Live at 6789 Sunray Street. I can testify it's also been better. I go out in the backyard with the kids, and the dogs would bark at my kids, and it was a little vicious. And I feel just better with the fence up, honestly. I think it's nice coming up through the side because I think the dogs would bark at each other through just seeing each other through, even if it were gated back there, even if it were possible. So I'm definitely in support of the fence.
Same question, if you know, are there any other fences like this that you can think of that the other neighbors have?
I can't remember any.
Okay,
No.
thanks.
Thank you. Seeing that there's no one else in attendance, I'm not either going to ask for any more support or those to testify against. Before we close the public testimony, any other questions we want to investigate? Concerns before we get into our...
No other questions, I guess. I mean, the neighboring homeowner isn't here and supposedly wanted to be here. Is that something that we should, maybe I guess, talk about in our deliberations, whether we should keep this open for another month to allow them to be here? Maybe we don't need that testimony, I guess. I guess that's really not a, I guess we could close the public hearing and then talk about that, couldn't we?
We could.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We've got a motion to close the public testimony and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
All right. Thoughts?
There's no complainant here. I guess there was a complaint, but nobody showed up to testify. It's apparently not the neighbor next door, as far as we can tell. Though, I guess that's
Speaks to itself.
Yeah, I mean, most of the variance requests we have for fences inside yards are not houses this close together, this close to the road. They're usually set back, usually down a hill a little bit, so this is a little different than some of the other ones. And so maybe it is a little more substantial, but as, you know, I don't know why I didn't think to look for other fences, but as I did drive up Wiltshire and I walked Sunray, it didn't seem out of place to me, to my eye. And so that was just kind of my impression. Obviously, whether it's a substantial variance or affects the character of the neighborhood is one of 7 factors, but it seems like it's kind of the biggest one, most important one to me in most cases. It just didn't really seem out of place. Could they have done something else? Yeah, I think they could have. They could have moved the gate. They maybe could have put in a 4-foot fence to keep the dogs away, or a solid 4 foot at the bottom and then open on top. I think we did something like that on that house with all those, that 12-level deck over on Immaculate or something like that at one time. But it just didn't seem that substantial to me as I looked at it. So that's kind of the main reason I think I'm leaning in favor of granting this. But I could be talked out of it, and I think if we should hear from the other neighbor, I'd be open to that too. See what you guys think.
Anyone else?
I think based on, what they're saying is that their neighbor is in support of it. So if we delay it, to hear him say that he's in support of it, we're kind of in the same boat. So delaying it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's an option.
If we believe them.
So help you God.
I have no reason to disbelieve them.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Jeff, I am in your camp for a lot of the same reasons. Typically, like you said, the houses are farther apart. Or typically we have neighbors that are feuding that want to separate from one another. And I just wrote down this right here is, even though process wasn't followed, I think we've got a better solution than not. That's the, so I think when I think, we don't have the standards up here, but substantial justice.
Spirit and intent.
Spirit and intent.
General welfare.
Yeah. And the other thing was when I drove down the street today to look at it, it didn't look that imposing. It was kind of like, well, there's the driveway on one side and you got the greenery on the other, and these houses are only 20 feet apart or something like that, and it probably makes for good neighbors. That they've got their privacy. Mr. Griffin's out there grilling or whatever. That I'm in favor of granting the variance. So I can't talk you out of it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, with respect to case 17, I move that we approve the variance based on substantial conformance with the site plan dated, received July 12th.
I guess we don't have any other conditions to.
Right, no 1 year, 2 years,
Yeah.
not anything like that.
We got a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the variance, we also have a second. Before we vote, is there any other discussion? Would staff please call the roll?
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
We don't need to meet next month.
You're welcome to come back.
If we're here.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Will they be issued a zoning certificate for it?
We'll reach out to you with with the next steps and things like that, probably tomorrow or Monday next week.
Okay.
So what happens with the sign in our yard? Can you
We'll grab it
take
tomorrow.
back?
Yeah, we'll grab it tomorrow.
Well, you don't like it?
Makes me feel like we've done something wrong. We've just established that it's okay, so.
Everyone will think you're moving.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we get to journal our decision here. You got a little bit of work to do. Take a brief recess. Figure out how I got to glue this thing back together.
Don't know your own strength, huh?
Oh, yeah.
But that's from like the historic
Yeah,
home or something,
that's,
right?
thanks.
Something.
Oh, good Lord, it's even got something on the back.
Yeah.
Engraved.
What does it say?
2008, Bill,
That's not that long ago.
Bill Warden,
It's just like 1888 or
Sycamore. Yeah. Yeah, 16, oh, whatever. Sycamore from Turpin Farm, corn crib, 18 something. Oh, jeez, oh, Pete.
Okay.
You think I can take this home and bring it back and nobody will know it, nobody will notice?
Put a vise on it, put some glue on it. Whittle another one.
Will the trustees have to bang on now?
Take a shoe off. Bend on it.
Is it? Well, God, that probably means I owe you.
Take it out of your salad.
Oh, that was quick. You ready?
Right.
First sentence, the variance is not substantial. Probably just delete the second sentence.
Did you hear that? Delete the second sentence in one, yeah.
For number two, the explanation doesn't follow from the first sentence, really. I would say, the essential character table would not be substantially altered. Second sentence maybe, even though the houses are close together, the fence is in character with is in character with the houses and decks, and I don't know what, something like that, right? Yeah, with surrounding properties. The fence is consistent with the character of the surrounding properties, let's say.
Properties.
I think we could probably just delete 4 altogether.
Yep. And then the intent, spirit intent behind will be observed. And substantial justice done.
Yeah.
And then get rid of the rest of it.
That all looks right to me.
The question is, does the neighbor need a variance for the deck inside the house?
He probably only needs to be 3 feet then. Do we think he is?
You
Can't
what?
be the side at all, I think.
It's an anonymous complaint.
All right, Mr. Chair, with respect to case 17, I move that we approve and journalize our decision.
Second the motion.
We've got a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Anything else to come before the board?
Not for me.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, here. No.
Yeah, I'm not the secretary.